Thank you for watching QTV. With the news, my name is Diana Sumbwe. We take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has directed the Minister of Finance to expedite engagements with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. State House is in receipt of a report from the administrative inquiry into the misapplication of funds for the social cash transfer program. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has directed the Ministers of Finance and National Planning to expedite engagements with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. President Lungu says this is in order that the process of seeking an IMF-funded program can also advance. Speaking when he met World Bank Vice President for Africa, Hafez Ghanem, at State House, President Lungu expressed hope that the government will enter into a deal with the IMF in due course. President Lungu's government is also determined to engage with the World Bank in a constructive manner. He has since commended Dr. Ghanem for coming to Zambia at a time when some opposition political parties have deployed rancor attacks to derail the economy.
From a very critical point in time when there's so many issues real and perceived, which I think we can discuss, and I'm sure that after this formal meeting, my team, Minister of Finance and other officials will sit down with it to elaborate a bit more on whatever areas of interest we may have and we wish to see clarification. So once again, you're most welcome.
And Dr. Ghanem has encouraged President Lungu to engage with the IMF in a discussion so that the possibility of an IMF-funded program can be feasible. Dr. Ghanem says the World Bank is also available to offer technical support to Zambia in renegotiating the restructuring of the loans that Zambia has with China.
Here in Zambia, and I thought this would be an opportunity for us to present to Your Excellency the program and what I already had excellent discussions with your team, with the Honorable Minister of Finance, with the Honorable Minister of Planning, and with the further secretaries, and I'm looking forward to continuing discussions with them after this meeting.
Meanwhile, President Lungu says government will do everything possible to assist investors that are keen on doing business in Zambia. He has urged them to explore the abundant investment opportunities there are in the country. President Lungu said this when he met 5 investors from Luapula Province at State House.
Finding time to come through and finding it in your heart to just put yourselves together and take advantage of this occasion to speak out. Because we do get reports, yes, we have systems of communicating with you and getting to know what you're doing on the ground and the challenges that you face, but there's no better experience than walking the terrain and feeling for yourself. For me, this has enabled me to understand much better what you are going through. But of course, I will understand best if I can visit your various operational areas and to find out how you are getting on. So next time, probably we'll hold a meeting. It will be in Luapula Province at my request. So I hope I'll be as welcome as you have been here. Thank you very much.
And one of the investors, Sunbird Bioenergy Limited Group Chairman Rajan Matan, has assured President Lungu the alleged smear campaign against the government has not affected investors in any way. Dr. Matan says investors already know the truth of what is going on.
We appreciate your commitment to the development in the country and your personal involvement in these projects. We believe that your vision will come to reality very shortly. Your Excellency, we would like to also, on behalf of all the investors here, assure you that the smear campaign that's going around has not affected the investors in any way, because they know the truth, Your Excellency, and the truth will finally prevail.
Offering the hand of assistance. We run many companies in Kenya and we have not seen this kind of interaction, so I'm really, really pleased to be here and really appreciate your assistance and for the kind of blessings that you have endowed upon the kind of work that we are doing. I think this is very encouraging. Thank you so much.
The investors that, together with Dr. Matan, met the president at State House are GED Africa Limited Country Representative Marcus Ascot, Mansa Sugar Managing Director Kuma Natrajan, MMRP Manganese Mine Limited Chairman Sitra Chamanda Raju, and Kawambwa Sugar Limited Senior Manager in charge of administration Ani Chimota. President Edgar Lungu has received a report from the Administrative Inquiry into the misapplication of funds meant for the Social Cash Transfer Program. Special Assistant to the President for Press and Public Relations Amos Chanda has told journalists in Lusaka that President Lungu is happy with the findings of the inquiry. Mr. Chanda says from the 8 officers at the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services who were suspended to pave way for the investigations into the alleged misapplication of the social cash transfer money, 4 have been reinstated and are now working. He says the remaining 4 are still suspended to pave way for a smooth process of inquiry that is still ongoing at the ministry.
I wish also to announce that the President today received the report of the administrative inquiry that he had ordered in the Ministry of Community Development. And the administrative report is complete and submitted to the President. The President is happy with the findings made so far, but we are limiting our comments on the report because the second part of the report, which is a forensic audit, is still ongoing. And the forensic audit has been completed at the ministry headquarters, but the auditors have now moved to Zampost, their office in Ndora, and complete this inquiry that was being undertaken in the Ministry of Community Development with regard to the alleged misapplication or theft of funds meant for social cash transfer. But I can announce here that of the 8 employees that were suspended to allow for smooth investigation, 4 have been reinstated and have resumed work because the administrative inquiry did not find them wanting. The minister informed Honorable Oliver Mansapiri, informed the President that those 4 have since resumed work, and the others remain on suspension to allow for further investigation. This matter was raised also by the World Bank representative, and the President accordingly gave this brief that these steps have been undertaken. It's one of the reasons why the World Bank in fact said that they were quite pleased. The President emphasized that safe custody of resources, both donor resources and government resources, was of paramount. I must emphasize that the social cash transfer basket contains 75% of government funds and 25% of donor funds. Both funds, donor and government funds, are supposed to be protected and spent prudently.
Vice President Inonge Wina has encouraged the young generation to realize that the future of the world lies in their hands. Mrs. Wina says this responsibility, however, requires them to work extremely hard to achieve the best they are capable of. She states that this is while remaining focused and sensitive to the needs of others, especially the underprivileged. Mrs. Wina said this in a speech read for her by Minister in the Office of the Vice President Sylvia Chalikosa during the Zambia United Nations Day celebrations at the International School of Lusaka. We have more in this report.
The International School of Lusaka today celebrated 54 years of existence, the 73rd anniversary of the United Nations, and the 54th anniversary of Zambia's independence. The event was characterized with entertainment from the pupils. Vice President Inonge Wina, in a speech read on her behalf by Minister in the Office of the Vice President, Sylvia Chalikosa, says government is focused on facilitating the mainstreaming of national values, principles, and ethics in the country's development agenda while promoting citizen ownership and participation.
I'm glad to inform you that my government, through the 7th National Development Plan, promotes the inculcation of national values and principles which bring about understanding and dissemination of ethics as enshrined in the Constitution. This is indeed a strategic and appropriate means of delivering Zambia's Christian heritage as a standard of governance approach. In addition, government is focused on facilitating the mainstreaming of national values, principles, and ethics in the country's development agenda while promoting citizen ownership and participation.
And head at the International School of Lusaka, ISL, Mark Fox, says the school chooses to emphasize on things that unite them, rather than that which divides them.
The phrase, celebrating who we are, is the same in each case, but we choose how to interpret it, either as atomizing and individualistic, or as unifying and collective. The choice to emphasize we rather than who transforms the way we see the situation. At International School, we choose to emphasize the things which unite us rather than those which divide us. We choose to emphasize respect for all members of our community. We choose to emphasize the shared pursuit of knowledge and understanding through dialogue and inquiry.
The celebrations had about 50 nations represented. This year's Zambia and United Nations Day theme was being celebrated under the theme, Celebrating Who We Are. Martha Katambi, reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
The Treasury has released 30 million kwacha to pay seed and agro dealers to enable farmers that use e-voucher cards access farming inputs for the 2018-2019 farming season. Minister of Agriculture Michael Katambo told Zanis in a telephone interview that government is on point with respect to the distribution of farming inputs to farmers. Mr. Katambo says fertilizer has been designated in all districts and that the release of funds by the Treasury enables eligible farmers to start accessing the inputs. And Mr. Katambo says security wings have been placed in designated areas and all illegal routes that facilitate the movement of maize and its products into neighboring countries. He has maintained that the move is a measure aimed at sustaining and safeguarding the country food security. Mr. Katambo states that there is no need for the general public to panic as Zambia is food secure. He says the current maize stock in the country stands close to 496,000 metric tons. Ron Member of Parliament Chishimba Kambwili has expressed concern that the 2019 national budget will prove to be a failed financial plan. Mr. Kambwili says he has taken note that allocations in the 2019 national budget will not help much in the country's developmental agenda. He is of the view that allocations towards maintaining peace and order, for example, should have instead been channeled towards the health sector. And Mr. Kambwili has called on the ruling Patriotic Front to stop practicing politics of appeasement at the expense of the vulnerable poor. Mr. Kambwili says he foresees the PF government being considered to be the worst government in the history of Zambia once it leaves office, given the rate at which it has been borrowing. He states that he finds it saddening that despite borrowing, no meaningful development is being seen in the country. He has since advised the PF to be a listening government if it is to achieve its mandate of being a pro-poor government. Mr. Kambwili said this in Parliament during his contribution to the debate on the 2019 national budget.
I was saying that this is a failed budget. Failed budget in the sense that the whole essence of leadership is to reduce poverty. And the three pillars of poverty are education, health, and agriculture for food security. But we have seen in this budget that this government, because of borrowing, they are spending more money on paying servicing debt than money taken to social services for poverty alleviation. Obviously, if you cannot look after your people, if your people cannot get out of poverty, then that budget is a failed budget. We have so many problems in the health sector that we needed more money than we've ever put in the health sector. But what has this government done to reduce the budget for the health sector? I'm telling you, if I will be alive, I will follow you one by one. Yeah. When people start dying because of poverty, for Pabolo, I will be Mr. President. This carelessness in spending Zambia's money for you to get commissions. Those planes that you are buying, in fact, those 2 small planes you are buying, which regional route can you service? So, I have so many things to say, but in Bemba will say,
the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, has demanded that the poor be included in the design and implementation of programs and policies that affect them. CSPR Board Chairperson Isaac Ngoma says there is need for a conducive environment that fosters partnership, accountability and inclusivity for all citizens to enjoy their rights and live a life of dignity. Mr. Ngoma has observed that while government is issuing politically correct policy statements of eradicating poverty and not leaving anyone behind, the reality is mostly different. He is concerned that leaders have continued playing politics while millions of Zambians continue to suffer the humiliation of poverty and the violation of their human rights. Mr. Ngoma has told QTV News that he thinks that the notion of a free and prosperous Zambia remains just a dream, as simple things such as access to basic services, including legal justice, remain an illusion. He is worried that if this scenario continues to keep most of the people perpetually trapped in poverty. The Chipata Magistrate Court has meted out a 5-year imprisonment with hard labor to a 34-year-old man who was convicted for the crime of unlawful possession of live pangolins. David Piri was arrested and taken to court by officers from the Department of National Parks and Wildlife, who found him with 2 live pangolins concealed in a bag in Chipata. And in Kitwe, the subordinate court convicted and sentenced 4 men to 5 years imprisonment with hard labor for unlawful possession of a prescribed trophy, namely 1 crocodile skin. James Makungu, 60, Lawrence Chipasha, 48, Friday Sonda and Pondas Chinga, 21, were arrested by intelligence officers from the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. Meanwhile, the Mpika Magistrate Court has also convicted and sentenced Bryce Chanda and Kelvin Kunda to 5 years imprisonment with hard labor for the unlawful possession of black lechwe meat. This follows their apprehension by officers from the Department of National Parks and Wildlife, who found them with the meat of a freshly poached black lechwe. The offences in all 3 convictions are contrary to Zambia Wildlife Act No. 14 of 2015. This is according to a statement made available to Q News by Ministry of Tourism and Arts Public Relations Officer Sakavilo Kalembwe. The World Bank has affirmed its commitment to supporting Zambia's health and education sectors. World Bank Vice President for Africa, Haves Ganem, says his bank supports in various programs of Zambia's health, education and energy sectors is now worth 1.2 billion United States dollars. Dr. Ganem says the objective of the World Bank is to help fight poverty and promote economic development in Zambia. Speaking when he called on Minister of Finance Margaret Manakatwe at her office, Dr. Ganem, however, noted the need for macroeconomic stability and human capital in the development of Zambia. Dr. Ganem says he's encouraged by the advances that the Zambian government is putting in place to ensure macroeconomic stability and development in the country.
We have $1.2 billion of projects and programs already in Zambia They cover, well, you know, the World Bank is an organization whose objective is to fight poverty and to support economic development. So a large part of our portfolio is focused on education and on health. So we have projects for girls' education and women's empowerment, which is very, very important today. Projects on general supporting general education, and also a project on health improvement, which is also with a big component for maternal and child health care. Now, so this education and health are an important part of our portfolio, and actually, as the Minister and I are coming from the annual meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and one of the big issues that were raised at those annual meetings is the importance of human capital.
Yes.
And how human capital is important for economic development. And so investments, and a big conclusion that came from those meetings is that investments in education, in health, and especially in women's and children's health are not just social investments, they are pure economic investments.
And Mrs. Mwanakatwe, who was flanked by her national planning counterpart Alexander Chiteme, has expressed gratitude to the World Bank for the support it is rendering to Zambia. Mrs. Mwanakatwe says government is also grateful to the bank for choosing Zambia to be the host country for International Development Association IDA in November this year.
And really, for me, it is to, as I welcome you, to appreciate the extent of $1.2 billion worth of support from the World Bank. And this is funding that is concessional. It is funding that is coming at a very cost-effective rate. And to have IDA 18, the midterm review, happening in Zambia for the first time in sub-Saharan Africa, for me, I want to say thank you for giving Zambia that opportunity. And I do look forward, Mr. Vice President, to November 14th, 15th, when a whole lot of people, I think there are more than 400, that are coming to review midterm the IDA program and to launch IDA 19. And with that will come a visit to the programs and projects that are happening in Zambia with support of the World Bank. So it's great to have you here as you come to check on the state of preparedness for the midterm review, and also to let you know that as I presented to Cabinet to ask for approval for this, there was overwhelming response around the Cabinet table. And I'm happy to say that my President will be present to actually officiate.
That we're improving on our portfolio in Zambia as well. We've moved it from an absorption rate of 6% to about 31-36%. I think that's a plus for us, and we just want to welcome you, and please take a look at most of the projects that we're doing. Some of them are very great. Welcome again.
The World Bank delegation, which is being led by Dr. Ghanem, is in the country for a midterm review meeting and to hold talks for the preparations of the IDA conference scheduled to take place from 14th to 15th of November this year in Lusaka. Over 400 delegates from 180 countries across the world are expected to attend the conference. KPMG Zambia has become the latest tax and advisory firm to favor the abolished value-added tax VAT over the newly introduced sales tax. KPMG Zambia Director Michael Piri says the VAT was more efficient than the sales tax is likely to be in collection of tax by government. Speaking during a public discussion on the sales tax organized by the Economics Association of Zambia, EAZ, in Lusaka, Mr. Piri said the sales tax will bring about cascading of tax in the country. Mr. Piri says the only issue that his firm thinks is a problem in Zambia with regards to tax collection is compliance by citizens to pay tax, which currently stands at 16%.
We need to strengthen the administration of all the taxes that we have in Zambia, and more especially the value-added tax, because it has been proved to have the advantages that are even acknowledged by the Zambia Revenue Authority itself. And so what we therefore need to do is ensure that we increase compliance, we administer it better if we are to make VAT a little more effective. But we know that we're moving away from VAT. Another reason why I think that VAT has changed is that the whole essence was, one of the key things was to try and promote manufacturing in Zambia. But we opened ourselves up to SADC and COMESA, and because of the protocols we signed, we end up with goods coming into Zambia whose origin is from a SADC member state or a COMESA member state at a rate of 0%. So it's essentially eroded the base for customs collection in terms of imports.
And policy think tank International Growth Center IGC country economist Twivoe Siwale says her firm has established that unlike with the value-added tax, tax evasion is likely to increase with the sales tax. Ms. Siwale says this is because there will be a tendency of business colluding and working together to avoid paying the tax.
From the evidence, really, because of the asymmetric incentives that VAT creates between the supplier and the other person who's purchasing, it's difficult for them to collude to evade the tax. Because the person who is purchasing goods from the previous person in the chain needs their invoice to claim their input VAT. And the person who's selling to them wants to report lower sales, so they don't want to give them that invoice. So the two cannot work together to evade the tax. But with sales tax, that mechanism isn't there. So you find that businesses will have a high tendency of colluding and working together to not pay the tax. And another thing is that VAT creates a larger paper trail and also gives ZRA more material to work with, or the revenue authority more material to work with, because they can check those who submitted refund claims against those who are declaring sales tax. And if there is evasion, there's a mechanism to check. With sales tax, that mechanism falls apart.
Meanwhile, Consumer Unity and Trust Society CATS International Zambia Center Coordinator Chenai Mukumba says it is too early to say what the impact of the sales tax will be on the Zambian economy. Ms. Mukumba states that her firm in particular does not have enough details on how the sales tax, which will be enforced in April 2019, will impact the economy.
It's supposed to be giving the civil society perspective, but I think there's a number of different civil societies. So, I mean, the only perspective I'm sharing tonight is essentially, the civil societies that agree with what I'm going to say this evening. But also, in addition to that, the topic I was given by the EAZ was to look at the likely impact of sales tax on the economy. Quite a difficult topic to look at, just because we don't have as much data anymore, I mean, at the moment, and we also haven't been given enough information to start taking a look at what could potentially be the impact. And so a lot of the conversations that are going on at the moment are really sort of, trying to get answers from the government. It's supposed to be
Northern Province Minister Brian Mundubile says over 40,000 jobs will be created once the Kalungwishi farming block is fully developed. The minister says government is currently developing the farming block, which has an investment potential of over $1.5 million. Mr. Mundubile says the development of the farming block, which is one of the biggest in the province, is aimed at opening up the agriculture potential of the province. He adds that the farming block also aims at contributing to the reduction of unemployment and instead increase domestic resource mobilization and reduce fiscal deficit. Mr. Mundubile disclosed this in Parliament during his contribution of the debate for the 2019 national budget.
For Northern Province will soon have its exposition, starting with the 20th of November. What we intend to achieve by holding these investment expositions will be to open up Northern Province to agriculture. We have one of the biggest farming blocks in the country, in the name of Kalungwishi farming block. It's projected that once Kalungwishi farming block reaches the exact stage, we should be able to create employment up to 40,000 people. Meaning that this move by government is already beginning to speak to the reduction of unemployment. At the same time, investment of up to $1.5 billion in this farming block will contribute greatly towards the GDP, not only of Northern Province but the country. Meaning that for Madam finance minister who is looking at increasing the domestic resource mobilization. She can comfortably cancel another project.
The Lusaka Water and Storage Company says the Lusaka Sanitation Project, in which public toilets will be constructed at Kazito Community School in Matero Township, will soon commence. Public Relations Manager Patson Piri has told Q News that the construction works have delayed because the contract awarded to the contractor to work on the project was terminated. Mr. Piri says the contractor failed to meet the obligations of the contract. He says the Lusaka Water and Storage Company wants to hire a contractor who will meet the required standards.
There have been complaints that the works have stalled at Kizito Primary School. The reason is that we have terminated the contract in favor of Matchtech Construction Company Limited. They are the ones that we gave a contract to construct that those toilet facilities at Kizito Community School. But they haven't done well in terms of meeting our levels, in terms of meeting our contractual obligations. We have good standards that we follow because these public toilets are supposed to be constructed at a huge cost. So we don't want them to be of substandard. And so the reason that the works have stalled is that we are trying to look for another contractor who will be able to meet our standards for us to proceed with that job. And so we're asking for patience from the stakeholders that have been calling to express that concern. We sympathize with them, but we have to give them a product that meets the standards, so that the children at that community school are well serviced in terms of sanitation services. There have been
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has directed the Minister of Finance to expedite engagements with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. State House is in receipt of a report from the Administrative Inquiry into the misapplication of funds for the Social Cash Transfer Program. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Simbwe. Thank you for watching.